But this is what I really wanted to get into. This new crackdown on the border. They're cracking down on the border. All right. They're cracking down on immigration. I don't know if y'all remember when Biden was running, but he was talking about how, oh, Trump, he's so cruel to the immigrants. We need somebody who's going to, allow the immigrants to come in. But Biden, ever since he got into office, has been trying to shut that border down, has been trying to shut down immigration, just like Trump. Not very different at all. And what you'll notice, if you look at how the country moves and the policies that come, these presidents aren't different. They may appear different, they may talk a little different, but the policies and the direction that the country's headed in is no different, because they all work with the same people. They all work for the same people. They're all just entertainers. They're not the people who actually run this country. All right, understand that thing. All right. It said President Joe Biden said on Friday that the border deal being negotiated in the U.S. Senate was the toughest and fairest set of reforms possible, and vowed to shut down the border the day he signs the bill. All right. The bipartisan, so this is both sides, Democrats and Republicans, talks have hit a critical point amid mounting Republican opposition. Some Republicans have set a deal on border security as a condition for further Ukraine aid, right? So the Republicans want it harsher than the Democrats, but the Democrats still want to crack down on the border. Don't get it twisted, all right? Earlier in the day, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson said the deal is dead on arrival in its current form, according to a letter to Republican lawmakers in the House of Representatives viewed by Reuters. Biden, a Democrat seeking another term in the November 5th elections, has grappled with record numbers of migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border during his presidency. Republicans contend Biden should have kept the restrictive policies of Republican former President Donald Trump, the front runner for his party's nomination. And see, the thing is, he did keep those same policies. The only difference is, instead of putting the kids in cages, he put them in like prison cells, right? So it was a little different. Instead of, he ran on a platform of we will welcome immigrants. So when the immigrants started coming, the Democrats were acting surprised that there were so many immigrants coming, when Biden run on a platform of we will welcome the immigrants. All right. What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country, Biden said in a statement. How can you be the toughest and fairest to these people who are coming in from Latin America? And we're going to get into why they're coming in from Latin America as well. All right, don't get it twisted. It would give me as president a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day I signed the bill into law, he said. So he said, look, if this bill passes, I'm shutting down the border tomorrow. He said, I'm not letting any extra people in. We're going to make it harsher and rougher on the people that's trying to come through the border. All right. The White House has agreed to new limits on asylum at the border, including the creation of an expulsion power that would allow migrants to cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally to be rapidly returned to Mexico if migrant encounters surpass 4,000 per day. Three sources familiar with the matter said. So they said, look, we're going to crack down on deportation. We're going to pick back up on that deportation thing, and we're just going to find people and ship them back. That's what they're saying here. If encounters pass 5,000 per day, the use of the expulsion authority would become mandatory. They said, look, if too many people come across, we're cutting it off, and we're just going to start shipping everybody out. All right. According to the sources who requested anonymity to discuss details of the private negotiation, in December, encounters averaged more than 9,500 per day, according to the U.S. government statistics released on Friday. The sweeping authority would be comparable to the COVID-era Title 42 policy. That's the one that put the kids in cages, all right, put in place under Trump during the pandemic, and which ended under Biden in May 2023, right? So this Title 42 thing, as you can see here, Biden didn't even end it until May of last year, all right? So understand that. But notice that this article said, look, this is something just like Title 42. It's the same type of thing. Both of these sides, Democrats and Republicans, both of them don't want the Latinos coming up in here. They don't want people coming through the border. All right? Understand that thing. Even if they say different, they don't want it. All right? And we're about to see a video that says exactly that. Migrants trying to claim asylum would still be able to do so at legal border crossings if the expulsion power was in effect, one of the sources said. But see, what's been going on is people will claim asylum and they still won't let them in. All right? People will claim asylum and they still say, no, we're shipping you back. The U.S. would be required to allow at least 1,400 migrants per day to approach legal crossings to claim asylum if the expulsions were in effect, the source added. So they said, look, we might have to let a few of them in, but we'll see how that goes. I ain't even sure about that, to be honest with you. The bill aims to resolve asylum claims in 6 months without detaining migrants, the source said, faster than the current process, which can take years. Yeah, we'll see about that because politicians are all about making promises that they cannot keep and do not keep. So we'll see about that. Trump, however, took to social media last week to warn against any deal that fails to deliver everything Republicans want to shut down border crossings. And obviously, the Republicans and the Democrats always try to stonewall each other on policies so that no party gets an advantage. All right. Biden also urged Congress on Friday to provide the funding he asked for in October to secure the border. This includes an additional 1,300 Border Patrol agents, 375 immigration judges, 1,600 asylum officers, and over 100 cutting-edge inspection machines to help detect and stop fentanyl at our southwest border, the president said. All right, so they're cracking down on the border. All right, and like I said, him and Kamala run on this platform of we'll be better to immigrants than Trump was, when really they're doing the same exact thing. All right. And check this out right here. I want to play this video. This is an old video, but I just want to play it real quick.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
U.S. Vice President.
You see that right there? So Kamala said, this was a couple years ago. She said, look, if y'all come to the border, we're not letting you in. All right. You're going to be shipped back.
Kamala Harris in Guatemala on Monday said she had robust talks with Guatemalan President Alejandro Yamatei on the need to fight corruption and deter undocumented immigration to the United States from the Central American nation.
I hope y'all heard what country they're talking about. Guatemala. We'll get into that here in a minute.
Where she had one resounding message for those considering making the dangerous journey.
Do not come. Do not come.
She said, look, we don't want you here. Don't come to the U.S. When their whole, one of their main platforms when they ran for election in 2020 was, we'll be more accepting of immigrants. But then she goes to Guatemala and says, don't come to the country.
The vice president, in her first foreign trip, said improving living conditions for Guatemalans at home, fighting corruption, narco-trafficking, and smuggling, and encouraging private investment in Guatemala were key to stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. border.
So listen to that. She said, y'all need to worry about fixing your own country, and one of the ways we're going to do that is through American private investment. Keep that in mind. We're going to get into that.
The president and I discussed a fundamental belief that most people don't want to leave home. They don't want to leave the place where they grew up.
Does she really think people never considered that before leaving these countries to come to the U.S.? She thinks people never considered, oh, well, I guess I do like my home.
Where the language they know is spoken, where their culture that they know is present and has been, in this case, for centuries.
Harris said a task force combining resources from the Justice, State, and Treasury departments would work with local prosecutors to punish corrupt actors in Central America. The U.S. government has been pressing the so-called Northern Triangle, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, to do more to tackle corruption in order to improve social conditions for its people and make them less eager to emigrate.
So they said, y'all should be working to fix your own country instead of coming to the U.S. That's what they're saying.
But those efforts have been undermined by corruption scandals and resistance to U.S.
They're saying, look, y'all so corrupt. Why don't y'all worry about fixing y'all's corruption instead of coming to the U.S.?
backed judges known for their commitment to fighting graft, as well as concerns that the region is drifting towards more authoritarian tendencies. Asked by a reporter how he'd reply to critics who accuse his own government of corruption, President Giammattei had this to say.
I would like to turn this question back to you. How many cases of corruption have I been accused of? I can give you the answer to that.
You see, he had to throw up 666 to show that he's willing to work with the U.S.
0.
Harris is due to travel to Mexico after Guatemala for talks with the Mexican government on Tuesday.
And yeah, this was a couple years ago, so keep that in mind, all right? So something I want to look into is the history of banana republics. And you'll see how this all ties in together. It says that a banana republic is a derogatory term for a country that has an economy dependent solely on revenue from exporting a single product or commodity, right? So it's not even really about that. They say that's what it is. That's not really what it's about. Let's go to the origins of the term. The term banana republic was coined by the American author O. Henry in 1901, and a short story later adapted for use in his first book, Cabbages and Kings, in 1904. Henry describes a fictional country called Anchuria, this small maritime banana republic, as the book says, which is based on his experiences in Honduras, where he lived for several months during the 1890s. And that triangle that they were talking about, that triangle of countries down there, right? You have Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. So this man lived in Honduras and then wrote a book that wasn't specifically about Honduras, but covertly it was about Honduras, all right? Which is based on his experience in Honduras, where he lived for several months during the 1890s. But the deeper origin of the concept of a banana republic goes back to 1870, when Lorenzo Dow Baker introduced bananas that he bought in Jamaica to the U.S., creating a demand for the fruit through marketing. The United Fruit Company, keep that company in mind, we're going to read about them a little bit, took over a major proportion of this market. At the turn of the 20th century, United Fruit Company had banana plantations in many Central and South American countries. All right, so the United Fruit Company in the 20th century, in the 1900s, it started in the 1800s, but then on into the 1900s, had plantations all throughout Latin America. All right, and and Central and South America, I should say. In Honduras, the American-owned Cuyamel Fruit Company bought land for banana plantations in 1910. Banana fruit production was at the time dominated by the United Fruit Company, which was exporting bananas to the U.S. In 1911, Cuyamel's founder, Samuel Zemurray, orchestrated a coup d'etat with the help of mercenary Lee Christmas. The coup replaced the Honduran government with a military government headed by Manuel Bonilla, who gave concessions to foreign businesses. You see that right there? So since the late 19th century, early 20th century, what these people have been doing, what America and American businesses have been doing, is supplanting the actual leaders of these countries who want what's best for their people with puppets who will just let these businesses take over the country, all right, and put plantations everywhere, all right, which in turn acted as de facto rulers of the country. The resulting political instability led to economic stagnation. Honduras's foreign debt grew, which further undermined Bonilla's puppet government and gave the corporations more power. In 1933, Zemurray dissolved Cuyamel and took control of United Fruit, which then became the largest employer in Honduras until reforms in the 1940s. All right. So while America was in Germany fighting the Nazis, American business owners were running plantations down in Honduras and other parts of Central and South America. All right. A similar sequence of events unfolded in Guatemala. Remember that clip that we just watched of Kamala Harris speaking to the people of Guatemala, where United Fruit played on the U.S.'s fears of communism during the 1950s. Democratically elected as the president of Guatemala, don't America always talk about upholding democracy? Doesn't America always talk about how they love democracy? Well, here you have a democratically elected leader in Guatemala, Jacobo Arbenz. He focused on major social reforms, which included nationalizing uncultivated land and distributing it to landless workers for cultivation. So he wanted to help the people. He said, I'm going to take the land that these corporations own and I'm going to give it back to the people so that the people can become wealthy, so that the people can use the resources of the land to live and survive off of. All right. When he began his presidency in 1951. So this is even after that Honduras situation. These reforms were significant threats to United Fruit. Arbenz, who was attacked as a communist sympathizer, was ousted in 1954 by a CIA-led coup called Operation Success and replaced with a pro-business leader. You see that right there? So this isn't even like a conspiracy thing. This is a literal conspiracy, but it's not a conspiracy theory. This isn't some whack job blog website. This is Encyclopedia Britannica. All right? This is documented history. This actually happened, that the CIA went into Guatemala to overthrow their democratically elected president so that American businesses could continue with their plantations. All right? This is what actually happened. The Guatemalan government continued to be run by a series of U.S.-backed military rulers during a civil war that lasted from 1960 to 1996. So just to put that in perspective, 1996 was 2 years before I was born, was the same year my brother was born. My sister was 2 years old. My oldest sister was 2 years old in 1996. All right. This is in our generation. This is in our lifetimes where the U.S. has been wrecking Guatemala, destroying Guatemala from the inside. All right. Although democratically elected governments returned after 1996, economic inequality that has its roots in the United Fruit era continues into the 21st century in Guatemala, where more than half of the population lives in poverty. All right. Understand that thing. Guatemala is so messed up and so corrupt because of the U.S. And now the U.S. has the audacity to go down to Guatemala and say, don't come, stay here, fix your own corruption. Even though we did it to you, stay down here and fix it. Don't come to the U.S. We won't let you in. We're going to ship you back if you come even. We're going to crack down on the border so you can't come. The hypocrisy, the wickedness, the evil of this country. All right. That's why the scriptures say, and it has horns of a lamb but spake as a dragon, right? This is the devil that we're dealing with here. All right. All right. So as you can see, same thing happened in Colombia. So here we have Honduras, Guatemala, Colombia, and as you can see down here in Hawaii as well. But we're going to get right to the scriptures, man. I wanted to point that out about Hawaii because a lot of BHIs say that them islanders are not our people. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Same thing happened over there in the Pacific. All right. So with that, let's get Deuteronomy 28, man. Let's get to the scriptures. Deuteronomy 28, starting with verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. All right, it says, cursed shall thou be in the city, and cursed shall thou be in the field. Guatemala was owned by a American business that took all the cities and turned them into fields. So you couldn't even, no matter what city you went to in Guatemala, all right, you were going to be cursed. No matter what field you went into in Guatemala, it was owned by United Fruit. You were going to be cursed. All right. It said, cursed shall be thy basket and thy storehouses, as in they were just filled with bananas, and people can't survive off bananas, not just bananas. All right. But that's what the country got turned into, because that's how American businesses were making the most money. All right. So I'm going to jump down to verse 34, I believe. 33, excuse me. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. You see that right there? So the fruit of the land was eaten up by the united fruit. All right. And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. And Guatemala is still suffering as a country because of what happened. All right. And America has the audacity to say, do not come. All right. So that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thy eyes, which thou shalt see. You see that right there? So it'll make you mad whenever you know this history. If you don't know the word, right? You'll get frustrated. You might do dumb things, right? Like join a cartel or something like that. All right. Keep on going down. Check out verse 45 where it says, go up a little bit. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee. So people think that coming to the U.S. is going to alleviate all their problems. It's not. The curses are going to follow you no matter where you go. All right. It's just going to be a different affliction, but it's going to be the same affliction, right? It's just going to be a different form, I should say. And overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. All right. So I'm jumping down to verse 49, and we'll go a little bit into the history. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. Right? America symbol is the bald eagle. All right. But also you talk about like Spain. Spain also had the eagle. Spain is the ones who originally come against Guatemala and Latin America. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. See, originally the people over here were speaking Hebrew. They were speaking a dialect of Hebrew. They was not speaking Spanish. But then here come the Spaniards and forced the Spanish on them. All right. And now America comes speaking English, and they don't know how to speak English down there. They speak Spanish. Right. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. So again, the Spanish, they was just killing babies. And America, they don't care how old you are. You getting out in that field and you working. All right. And he shall eat of the fruit of thy cattle and of the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. You see that right there? So Guatemala is ruined, and literally they can't use the land for anything other than the banana production. All right. So they can't have the corn, wine, oil, or the flocks of cattle and sheep, right? Because it's all bananas. All right. So from there, let's get Leviticus 26. Let's get Leviticus 26 real quick. And we're almost done because it's getting late and I got to go to work tomorrow, all that stuff. So Leviticus 26, I'm going to read, starting with verse 14. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if ye shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, so that ye will not do all my commandments, but that ye break my covenant. And Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28 are pretty much parallels. They just said it in different ways, but it all goes back to us not keeping the commandments of God. If we, as God's people, started keeping his commandments, then we would get the kingdom. Christ will return, and we'll get that here in a minute. All right. I also will do this unto you. I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague, that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And ye shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. You see that right there? So the people down there in Guatemala working on the plantation, it doesn't matter because the enemies are taking all the profits from that. See, Jacobo Arbenz tried to give the power back to the people, but that didn't work, did it? The CIA would not let that happen. All right. And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. And guess what? If you don't want to work, you're getting put to death. They that hate you shall reign over you. See, the Democrats and the Republicans both hate the Latinos. All right. They're both trying to crack down on the border. They're just trying to do it in slightly different ways, but it's still out of hatred. That's all it is. All right. They just don't want America to be, Spanish speaking and brown. That's basically what it is. All right. And ye shall flee when none pursueth you. See, nobody's chasing them out of Guatemala. They're just fleeing. They're just running because of how bad it is, because of the conditions. All right. From there, I'm getting Lamentations 5. We're almost done. Lamentations 5, starting with verse 1. Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. And America has the nerve to call the Mexicans and the Latinos aliens when all of California and Texas and Nevada and Arizona, New Mexico, all these border states used to be Mexico. So now when Mexicans and Latinos come into the land that used to be theirs, America's like, no, now you're the alien. No, that's not what the Bible says. It says our inheritance, our houses are turned to strangers and aliens. All right. Because this is the Israelites' land. All right. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. They're killing the men. All right. We have drunken our water for money. Our wood is sold unto us. Right. So our own resources, we have to pay for them instead of just getting them freely, instead of working the land freely. Like, Jacobo Arbenz tried to give the power back to the people, tried to give the resources back to the people. But then United Fruit stepped in and said, nope. The CIA stepped in and said, nope. You have to buy it. If you want this fruit, you have to buy it. You can't get none of this. You can't get the resources back. So what? It's your land. We took it over. All right. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. All right. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. Those are two of our oppressors in ancient times. So Jeremiah is saying this in the spirit. He's saying they're doing the same thing that the Egyptians and the Assyrians are doing. All right. Our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. You see that right there? So, it all goes back to the sins of our fathers. And because we continue in their sins, we now have to bear the curses that were put upon them. All right. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that deliver us out of their hand. That's why the only ones who can is God. People try. The only one who can deliver us is Christ Jesus. People have tried, like Jacobo Arbenz. He tried to give the power back to the people. He tried to give the resources back to the people, but he could not. People try by political means. People try by economic means. They cannot. All right. The only one that can save us is Christ. All right. So with that, I do want to prove that. Let's go. I can do it from right here because we're done with this one. Revelations. We're in Lamentations now. Let's go to Revelations. Revelation 7. This is what I mean when I said if we come back to God, then he will return. All right. Revelation 7:1. And after these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Now, this wind that it's talking about here, it's not talking about like literal wind. Wind blows every day. This is talking about the winds of change. This is talking about the winds of war. That's what this is talking about. Taking it right back to what we read from the beginning, all right, in Isaiah 9. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea. That lets you know that it's talking about war. Saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of God in their foreheads. All right. And to be sealed with the servant, to be sealed as a servant of God. I'll get that real quick. Get that in Isaiah 8:16. The book of Isaiah 8 and verse 16. Let's read it real quick. Isaiah 8:16 says, bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples, right? So this is specifically saying disciples because these are followers of Christ. The law will be in their foreheads, all right? It said, till we have sealed the servants of God's in their servants of our God, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads, the law of God on the mind, all right? And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. So that's your so-called African Americans, so-called blacks here in America. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. So Reuben would be your Seminole and Creek family Indians here in the West. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. That's the rest of your so-called natives and First Nations in Canada. All right. Of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. So that's your Brazilians and Colombians. All right. Of the tribe of Nephthalim were sealed 12,000. So that would be your Argentinians and Chileans over here in the West. Of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. That's your Cubans. And the Cubans have always fought against America as far as their policies and their tactics. Of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. That's your Dominicans. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. That's your Haitians. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Issachar is your Mexicans, right? Over here in the West. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. So that's your Central Americans over here in the West. And I keep saying over here in the West because the tribes are also in the East. They go by different names over there. Of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. So that's actually going into Ephraim. That's your Puerto Ricans. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. So that's your Caribbean blacks, right? Your West Indians, your Jamaicans, Trinidadians. You know, they go by different names, but that's all Benjamin. All right. So I'm gonna read this here. I'm going to keep reading. After this, I beheld and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number. So it's not just the 144,000. Those are just the leaders. Those are just the male leaders of the people. But after those 144,000, there's like millions of others that you couldn't even number, right? Of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. All right, so that's as it says here, the 144,000 is not just coming from the West; it's coming from. Well, I shouldn't say that, but 144,000 and the great multitude. I should say that. God's people are coming from all over the world. All right, so it's not just over here; it's everywhere. All right, out of all nations. And cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and four beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and worshiped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving, and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. All right, so I want to keep reading because there's a verse I want to get to, verse 14. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation. That's what I wanted to get to, because that great tribulation is what I was reading in Lamentations, what I was reading in Leviticus, what I was reading in Deuteronomy 28. All right. And have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb, meaning these people repented from out of their sins, and therefore they got delivered from these conditions that we live in today. So with that, I hope y'all learned something. I will go ahead and close it out with Matthew 26, because obviously I didn't get to do that on the stream because it was hacked. So I'm going to read this here in Matthew 26, and that will be the end of it. Matthew 26 and verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, To what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this that this woman hath done be told for a memorial of her. So all praises to the Most High for that sister. And the word's going to go out regardless. So whatever I can do to make that happen, Lord's will, that'll be the case. All right, so with that, I say shalom. Most High in Christ bless. Let God be magnified.